So the other night, Joseph and myself were watching a documentary. He had been looking for this one. He knew about it. And both of us we've been interested in watching the scientific world progressively being forced to bear witness to a creator. And, for us, this is not important to us as far as our communion with our Father. And we know that the only way anybody's going to know the Father is through acts of faith and personal communion with Him. But just the idea that there is a creator and that the scientific world has been a big question and argument. And of course, the majority for years was in denial of that, from Darwinism and the view of the materialistic, what they call the materialistic view of what is, that it just happened, that it even could be stagnant, meaning the whole universe, all that there is, could just be sitting there and no original cause. All kinds of ideas, but basically so much of it in denial of the creator. And Darwinism was a big one that, and look, it's pretty obvious to me, things evolve. I mean, I'm evolving. And of course, bugs, you can see them evolve very quickly. So it's not a denial of some of what science reveals. It's the way that people interpret it. And then you have fundamental Christianity, which wants to tell everybody that the creation's only 7,000 years old. And here's all this evidence that that's not so. Well, now, anything could be true. I mean, the power of the enemy to deceive. I thought about all those kind of things. But I asked Amen. And he said, oh, yeah, the earth is billions of years. All that's true. And there were dinosaurs. And Lucifer was part of creating that. He said it was the other creation. So there's a whole other story going on that doesn't deny the truth of the Father creating this creation and everything being sustained by Him. But this documentary, this is the newest information regarding creation. And I watched one, 20 years ago with a lot of the highest level quantum physics guys and scientists. And some of them were very young. Probably some of them were in this newer one that we watched. And the one thing I got out of it was that these guys were being awed by what they were discovering. And they were seeing things that were beyond explanation, and yet there was an intelligent order and design that was, one of the guys said that it was unquestionable that there was an intelligent design that was so intricate that it was possible that the human mind was not created so that it could comprehend it. I thought, yeah, that's right on. That's perfectly understandable. And so I watched that years ago, and really, I mean, Hawkins was on it. It was obvious that they were all being humbled by what they were seeing. So this is a world where people are like detectives and trying to figure things out from the outside to where it starts. And so here's the story of everything. And the scientists, numerous scientists in recent years who had very strong feelings of explanations for all that there is without a creator. And one of the guys, he was very well known, scientist, professor, had a whole thesis on basically denying a creator and the original cause. And he had one of his students brought in an argument that he had gotten from somewhere else that debunked the thesis. And he gave it to his professor. Professor took it home and read it during the summer and come back and said, yes, that absolutely refutes my thesis. And basically replaces it with the idea that there had to be an intelligent creator. Had to be a creation and a creator. And these are guys who are astronomers. They're working on with evidence from the outside and from the largest to the smallest. The Big Bang is a big part of it. And Amen did say the Big Bang was real. I heard it from one of the brothers. And so there's been an argument about that. Because the Big Bang, what it does, it brings everything to a beginning. And it's the creation of time and space. From a place beyond time and space that they can't go. That's something that they don't have a way to go there. And yet, it's proving out that space is, all the matter in space, the matter in creation is expanding. And that's what's creating time and space. And it goes on. Then they go down to the cell. And it used to be that they believed the cell was just a jelly thing, that they couldn't see anything beyond that. And now they can. And what they found was all the parts of a motor. An engine, a shaft, a bushing, and a propeller to move them. And these are the simplest organisms in creation, the building blocks. And, they're looking at it now and going, if you took one part out, it wouldn't work. So it couldn't have evolved. And Darwin, one of his statements was that if you can give an example of where something didn't evolve, but it was beyond evolution, that would debunk his idea that everything had evolved from the beginning. All life had evolved from the beginning. And here they had this mechanism that if you took one part out, it won't work. So it couldn't have built itself progressively. This is the scientists. They're looking at it. Then there's carbon. And they go, well, all the elements come from the sun. And the reactions in the sun create. So carbon is absolutely necessary for life as we know it in the physical to exist. And then they attempt to duplicate the creation of carbon. And they have helium and one other element that create it. Well, it's totally unstable except under perfect circumstances, which for the sun to do it would be like 1 in mucho trillion possibility. In other words, really unlikely that it could do it on its own without some intelligence engineering it. Now, for Joseph and I and the brothers and sisters, this is all, anything they discover in this kind of way doesn't mean a whole lot to us as far as our faith is concerned. But for the world and for people who are, don't have inspiration to actually move in faith and have experiences of the Lord revealing himself through faith, they're working from the outside. Now, it isn't going to help them to know the Lord. No, that can only happen personal. His nature. To actually have communion with him. And to have revelations given by him. But it's an arrow in the modern world where all knowledge is being revealed. Really, this is the time. The Father is revealing himself in every direction. So, for us guys, it's just, one of the things they brought up was beauty. And how in mathematics, when they find the truth, and these are people who are of that mindset, they're always blown away by how beautiful it is. And they have one statement that is, the truth is always beautiful. And then you have beauty in general. They were looking at that. And in evolution, it's not necessary. And where does it come from? And why is it there? And they show all these beautiful scenes, flowers and birds and even with all the fallen nature of this world, how much beauty still exists. And where does that come from? Of course, we know, who know our Father, that He gave us that beauty. And it's in a fallen state because of sin. And because we're co-creators with Him. And so in the world, people are co-creating with the other guy. And yet there's still all this grace of beauty that the Father's going to reveal Himself in our lives. That they look at and they go, well, where does that come from? Now they're looking from a totally intellectual mindset, which is not a spiritual mindset. But, a lot of these guys, they don't have agendas in the world so much as, and you can tell because they'll change their point of view from the evidence. They're willing to do that. And there was numerous guys in there who were totally agnostic or even total disbelievers in a creator who have been converted by their own exploration, and they're bearing witness to it. That they can't really deny this super intelligence that they're seeing in creation. And then there was the finale, which I thought was really beautiful, which is one of the scientists basically boiling it down to one question. Is there a purpose or isn't there? Cool, huh? Amen.